Whether you love him or hate him, Tate Martell is one of the most polarizing players in football history. He was one of those child prodigy quarterbacks who had offers when he was in middle school and went to one of the best high schools in the country. Some thought he was the most arrogant guy in the world, while others thought he was a supremely talented player who was going to one day play in the NFL. Either way, he had really high expectations going into his Ohio State career, but flash forward to 2021, no one really knows what is going on with his career right now. He hasn't seen the field at Miami at all. He had a cryptic video talking about how he was going to change who he was, make a comeback, and make his brand better, but we really don't know what is going on with him. But in today's video, I want to discuss everything that is going on. I will address the UNLV rumors, what he has been up to over the last few months, and sort of give you the truth about what the heck is going on with Tate Martell. But right before we get into that, nearly 81% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, and I know we can do better than that, so be sure to hit that button, support this channel, and you won't want to miss out on any of my college football content. Now let's get started. I think for today's video, we need to do a deep dive into Tate Martell's entire career so far, how he became a child prodigy, and sort of how he got his reputation as well. So let's get straight into it. Tate Martell has always loved football, and his passion for being a quarterback started at a young age. He grew up in Southern California and had big goals. By the time he was in 5th grade, he had read about a certain quarterback who had committed to USC as a 7th grader. In case you aren't familiar with who that is, his name was David Sills, and he was seen as a prodigy, committed to Lane Kiffin early on, but he would eventually kind of fade out and didn't live up to the hype as a quarterback. Luckily for Sills though, he ended up going to West Virginia, where he became a really good wide receiver and one of the better pass catchers in Mountaineers history. Martell, on the other hand, wanted to do big things. When he heard about Sills, he had this to say. Quote, "Oh, a 7th grader commits to USC, and at first I was like, what the heck, that's crazy. And then I remember saying, that's my goal." Martell would work and put his name out there, and it would actually happen. He was offered to play for Steve Sarkisian at Washington, and the summer before he entered 8th grade, he would commit. This is absolutely nuts, as I remember being a middle schooler, and the idea of going to college was not even on my mind at that point, so Martell was in the spotlight from a young age, and this was 4 years before he could even sign his national letter of intent. He would originally go to Poway High School in the San Diego area, but after leading them to a 4-7 season, he decided to transfer to the prestigious Bishop Gorman High School, which is located in Las Vegas, Nevada. He'd have a pretty decorated career there, as he would win the Nevada Gatorade Player of the Year, lead his team to a 15-0 record, and his stat line was pretty absurd. He passed for 2,362 yards and 41 touchdowns, while also rushing for 1,200 yards and 21 touchdowns on the ground. He went 45-0 as a starter, finished second in Nevada history with 7,500 passing yards and 13 scores, and was seen as a 5-star quarterback. He was also on the Netflix show QB1 Beyond the Lights, as he was joined by Jake Fromm and Tavon Bowers. As I said earlier, he originally decided to take his talents to the University of Washington when he was only 14 years old. In 2015, he would decide to switch gears, as he would ultimately flip to Kevin Sumlin and Texas A&M, as he modeled his game after Johnny Manziel, and that was probably a major reason why he wanted to be an Aggie. In 2016 though, he would end up decommitting from A&M and would have to find another school. He obviously had offers to everywhere in the world, so where was he going to go? Rumor had it that it would come down to Ohio State and Cal. Ohio State was his dream school, was a big-time program, and would be in need of a quarterback eventually, so that was very promising to him. But former Texas A&M offensive coach Jake Spavital was at Cal and the guy who recruited him to A&M, so him staying close to home, playing for the coach he knew best, and potentially saving a program was also something that he considered. He eventually would commit to Ohio State though, and had this to say about it. Quote, "Ohio State has been my dream school. I've got a great vibe with the coaches, and it's a place that will prepare me for the next level." According to 24/7 Sports, Tate Martell was a 4-star recruit, the number 2 dual-threat quarterback, and the 56th best player in the class of 2017. He was the biggest name of the 2017 class and one of the biggest high school names of all time, so him taking his talents to a blue blood program was more than likely going to lead to success, right? Going into his Ohio State football career, he would decide to redshirt during the 2017 season and try to get a little bit better and more experienced in the system. Going into 2018, there would be a quarterback battle between 3 pretty big names. The first guy was Dwayne Haskins, who was a 4-star top 100 player. Then you had Joe Burrow, who was a 4-star recruit who sat on the bench. And then you had Tate Martell. The battle would get a little bit easier for Urban Meyer to decide, as Joe Burrow would decide to graduate transfer to LSU, or you could say he had a pretty decent career from there. So it would come down to Haskins and Tate, and pretty early on in the offseason, Meyer basically said that Haskins was going to be the guy, but Tate would be able to compete later on in the fall and try and push him. He would not end up doing that, and he was named the backup, and while Ohio State was kind of under investigation for one of their coaches, Ryan Day would be the interim head coach for their first game against Oregon State. Because they blew out the Beavers so badly, Martell would get a chance to play, and he completed 3 passes for 33 yards. He wouldn't have his first big game though until the following week, as he would go 10 of 10 for 121 yards with a touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin. It didn't stop there though, as he also carried the ball 8 times for 95 yards and a touchdown, and Martell showed that he really could be a good player. The only considerable action you'd see the rest of the year came against Tulane as he threw for 115 yards and also rushed for a touchdown in that game. But from that point on, Haskins would take over, have one of the best passing seasons in Ohio State history, and become a first-round pick. Because Ohio State lost to Purdue, they would not get a chance to go to the playoff, so they would have to settle for the Rose Bowl. In 2018, Martell would pass for a total of 269 yards and 1 touchdown, while also rushing for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. But because Haskins was going off to the NFL, he was now going to get a chance to be that starter in 2019. At least that's what people thought. Now that Urban Meyer has retired, Ryan Day is the new head coach, and he needs his first quarterback. This is the first time Tate Martell starts to really fall off, as when Justin Fields decided to transfer to Columbus, he tweeted, quote, "A word of advice, don't swing and miss, especially not your second time." He was basically talking smack to Justin Fields about transferring to another school, and this becomes extremely ironic. Martell would later say, quote, "Why would I leave for someone who hasn't put a single second into this program? To just run away from somebody who hasn't put a single second into workouts, anything like that, and doesn't know what the program is all about, there's not a chance. I will be the starting quarterback, I'm 100% sure on that, and I'm not just going to walk away from something that I've put so much time into, and there's not a chance that I won't go out there and compete for that." Tate Martell backed up his name and was ready to be the starter no matter what. This would become a terrible take, as 2 weeks later, he entered his name into the transfer portal. He'd end up deciding to commit to the Miami Hurricanes, where he'd have a good chance to win the starting job, but he would have to get a waiver first. The NCAA would grant him a hardship waiver, and he'd be eligible to play right away for the Canes. Going into the 2019 season, the battle would come down to Tate Martell and redshirt freshman Jaron Williams. Williams would end up getting the nod, and Martell would actually switch to wide receiver. He wouldn't see the field all year, and despite Miami having quarterback problems, Martell never got a shot there. He ended up completing 1 pass for 7 yards, and his 2019 campaign was extremely disappointing. Going into 2020, apparently Martell had been suspended by the university, and he also decided to opt out of the 2020 season, and obviously he did not play. So far going into 2021, Martell would enter the transfer portal, and released a video about how he was going to rebrand himself, make a comeback, and try and save his career. Since then though, we have not heard a lot. There was a 24/7 Sports crystal ball projection for him to go to UNLV, but at this point, it doesn't make sense. While he did go to Bishop Gorman, and he's familiar with the area, and he could probably play there are some problems to this idea. The biggest one is that there are no open scholarships at UNLV for him. There's a 3-man quarterback battle going on for the Runnin' Rebels at the moment, and head coach Marcus Arroyo was asked about this. He said, quote, "We don't have a choice. We have no free agents. We're out of scholarships. One of these guys has to be the starter." As plain and simple as he can possibly make it, they don't have a spot for Tate Martell, and they're only looking at the quarterbacks in their current room to take that job. Right now, Martell is in a very tough spot, as we are only a month away from the college football season, and he has still not found a home, and even smaller schools haven't even extended him an opportunity. The truth is, Tate Martell may never play college football again. He's running out of time, he's barely ever stepped foot on the field, and a lot of teams have already decided to kind of just move on from him, it seems. The Tate Martell hype has died down, he's made some questionable decisions, and I think the football gods have just said it's time for Tate Martell to be done. This could all change though, as Martell could potentially decide to walk on at UNLV if he wanted to, or walk on at a different school. NIL is definitely changing the game, and with his talent and recruiting hype, there may be a school that takes a late flyer on him. We'll have to wait and see though. What do you guys think? What do you think will happen to Tate Martell? Do you think he'll ever play college football again? And who's another big time name who didn't end up panning out? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section. Hit that like button if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new here, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.